Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome back to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I are playing the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Thom Raley. The scenario is The Great Trap. It was written by Heinrich and it's available from Drive-Thru RPG. Our keeper of arcane lore is Julian Arbaugh, and this is episode 2. Our recap will be given by Morgan Llewellyn as his character, Nathaniel Daystrom. So without any further delay, let's begin our journey into the darkness. Morgan?
Thank you, Thom. For most of my adult life, I have been plagued with the question, how does one continue when faced with the fragility of existence? Or, to speak in a more direct manner, how can I continue? 5 years of my life gone, vanished in the blink of an eye, car accident, loss of memory and motor function, difficulty speaking, or so I am told. Some kind of unique case of prolonged yet temporary amnesia. Another personality interested in medieval metaphysics. I try to put it all behind me. I try not to think of that gross alienation from my own self. What was I like during those 5 years? I try to remember. I am lost in strange impressions, wandering through a vista of desolation crowned with spires of worn stone. I threw myself back into my studies, back into the familiar comforts of academia, but my research, my students, the continuous teaching and writing has not been enough. And what few gasps of free time I experience, I find myself continuing to fret over those 5 years, those lost years of my life. It's like a wound in one's mouth, a sore that pains you, and yet you feel helplessly compelled to worm your tongue into it again and again, feeling the pain each time renewed with an almost perverse delight. So, the book club. What an interesting group of people I assembled to try to stave off my own self-destruction. That creeping madness that lurks somewhere deep within my mind. There's Julia Chase, an excellent accountant and something of a lost soul herself. I helped guide her away from a cult, the children of Pythagoras. In a way, I think she, of all people, will understand best what it is like to be inhabited by a different, unrecognizable self. There's also, in this book club, Doctors Tycho Alden and Flint Larson. Strange fellows who believe firmly that they have found radiographic evidence of intelligent life from beyond Earth. It's also Spencer Raston, somewhat abrasive man who owns the bookstore where we meet. My illusion of a newfound source of relief was shattered this week. A letter purporting to be from the past, with all our signatures delivered by a woman named Virginia Peasley, mentioned in the letter and acting as legal counsel for one Dr. Osterman. Osterman apparently drafted the letter and signed it alongside us. I thought, at first, the letter was a farce, some kind of joke. Julia was not even alive on the date of signing. I do not know who would want to prank my little book club. What reason they would possibly have for doing so. But Tycho shared some troubling information. This Osterman, it seems, is undergoing the same bizarre amnesia. There are others out there, others with the same years stolen from them. I have always feared a relapse, and this news of others with my affliction abhorred and excite me in equal measure. Do I dare mention the dream here in this journal? The purple mist, a cloaked figure, a glimpse into a time I almost drowned in the Amazon River as a doctoral candidate. Oh, only this time I did. Peculiar, too, is that the rest of my book club had similar dreams of near-death experiences turned pseudo-reality. I shudder, delaying my writing the most peculiar horror of my present. Interacting with Osterman has filled me with an ineffable dread. His mannerisms and interests, my God. Was I just like him? Did I too construct weird devices in pursuit of a manic, unknowable obsession with obscure metaphysics and bizarre goals? Did I babble away at night, scheming of swimming in alternative time streams? Did I make a network of contacts for unthinkable collaborations and consultations? And this man who stole Amnesia Osterman's device, Walter Cruz, is reported to have also been afflicted like me. And just a few years ago, his observatory went silent. An observatory his amnesiac self built. Has that amnesiac self reemerged in Cruz, come to finish some infernal project long ago abandoned? And did the amnesiac self, in his turn, blink his eyes to find that decades had slipped away? I must know. I must know if that other self that lurks in me will one day return. But mine seems more and more like a slide projector. We live in our bodies, undergoing our existence, until we learn that we are not in control, until some unnameable force changes the slide, and we plunge into the black void while another occupies the screen of our minds and lives and bodies. I feel myself going to pieces. I sense that the others pity me, how I loathe them for it. How could they understand? How could they know what poor Osterman will experience when he awakens alone in that hospital, blinking his eye in the car only to wake up in a strange place with 5 years of his life gone? Well, maybe by the end of all this they will. Maybe if they have to confront those selves that signed that damnable letter 30 years ago.
All right. So it is currently June 10th, 1927. We'll place the time about 3 p.m. Dr. Osterman has been whisked away to the hospital. You all have conducted some research. Your intention is to go tomorrow and visit the Kreutz Observatory. Before you make your trip, is there anything you would like to do?
Well, there's some very strange number of things going on here. We've identified as you say, a 5-year gap that you and Osterman and possibly Cruz seem to have all experienced. And you don't remember what happened to you during those 5 years. But somebody, a new personality perhaps, took over your body and lived in it for 5 years and then disappeared, and your old personality came back.
I
What
wonder if it's cyclical.
Well, perhaps, but tie it together with the 30-year-old document signed by us, and it starts to sound remarkably like something impossible, time travel. But I signed the document too, and I certainly wasn't there. I haven't had 5 years missing from my life.
It's if this time stream babble and said, wait, it may be that you, Tycho, weren't there. It could be that a different Tycho was some kind of projection.
Unless
if it was you, Tycho, that inhabited the body of another and their amnesia and signed that letter in a different body 30 years ago. If the mind is a transferable thing across these time streams where a physical item such as a letter cannot, This all sounds insane.
Except that maybe time is irrelevant. Maybe the fourth dimension doesn't matter. So maybe I just haven't had my 5 years of amnesia yet. If I have them 10 years from now, I still go back to that same 30 years ago. We don't have to all be in the same time when it happens to end up in the same place.
I wish Osterman, or amnesiac Osterman, was less cryptic than he was.
Well, I'm wondering
His
if it's
device
this
with
machine.
his crystals and crew. I cannot get past if back in the 1890s, this Cruz underwent a spell of amnesia for 5 years, became a different person, and now here we are 30 years later, and about 5 years ago his observatory goes dark. Could it be that the self has reemerged in him?
Maybe.
Came back to finish some project that it didn't have time to finish in the past? Why it built the observatory in the first place?
This is why there should be solid math and planning behind building such a device that might warp the frame of the universe itself.
But there is... I mean, there's also this quite strong and most likely possibility that Osterman's amnesia self is delusional.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly.
The stuff with the stars, observatories, and like that's what your amnesia self, is that what we're calling it?
That's what I'm calling it. One's amnesiac self.
Yeah, it was the same subjects and materials that you studied. Your amnesic self did, correct?
It was I've been told, I did quite a great deal of study in the field of medieval metaphysics.
Yeah, but was it particularly the stars? Anything to do cosmologically?
Metaphysics encompasses what exists, what constitutes reality. Again, I am no expert in that philosophical subject. I can't speak to the exact extent to which medieval metaphysics would have to say on the cosmos or time or anything of that nature. I don't study it.
Yeah, I see.
That's other self, the amnesiac self of mine that did. But I'm not him.
Well,
I don't.
The conclusion I was trying to suggest is that whatever these selves are that are emerging within people seem to be trying to achieve the same goals or similar goals at least. And so there might be an intelligence behind it that is linking them.
But I don't know. Of people who've told me anything, I haven't been told that I collected rocks or tinkered away at some strange device. But then again, maybe
you read the book so that they would know how.
But I mean, that would...
If Osterman's machine is causing this effect, if he stumbled upon some cosmic principles that we don't yet fully understand, and he constructed a machine, and that machine is doing damage by flipping us somehow back and forth through time, we have to get the machine and stop it. We have no idea what damage it could be done. I personally think that a man wanting to go back in time doesn't make much sense. But somebody in the past wanting to go forward in time to perhaps steal technology from the future and bring it back to their own time, that would make sense.
I can see any number of reasons for wishing to go back in time.
Only for perhaps study, you know.
Well, we live in a causal universe. You could go back in time and change small things that would have enormous effects in the present.
Yeah.
Tip off the leader of one side of a battle about something that's planned, and the course of human history could be changed with a pencil.
But
at any rate, this device sounds extremely dangerous.
Yes.
Osterman isn't entirely mad.
And it could be if this device, again, has any functionality at all. My primary interest in going to the observatory is to meet this man, is to meet Walter, if he is still Walter. If he's also undergone this amnesia, I mean,
Yeah.
again,
It would even be possible, I imagine, to go back and meet yourself in another body. And perhaps that's what the letter is supposed to be, some kind of warning to us that we've done this all before.
This, of course, is the reason that time travel is probably impossible, because the number of paradoxes that emerge immediately become overwhelming.
Right.
If you go back and kill your grandfather in that family of logical paradoxes.
Well, some of those can work out because you can't go back and kill your grandfather, because then you couldn't have existed to go back and kill your grandfather.
And because the paradox is something that the universe should reject, being a functional place with rules and laws and reason.
In any case, it's one of those things I don't think that the creator of the universe wanted us to fuck around with, if you pardon my language. I forget I'm in the 20s.
I didn't take you for a religious man.
I'm not, but if all of these things are subject to such complex mathematical terms, we might as well assume that somebody built it that way.
What do you think about all this, Julia?
I'm afraid a lot of this talk is quite above my head, but I think it is at least worth a trip to the observatory.
Or it's a CPA.
I think it's above all of our heads. Some of us are pretending it's not.
If a certified public accountant could go back in time and invest a couple of dollars in something she knew was going to,
I don't think if I were to be able to go back in time, Dr. Alden, that would be my main focus. I have a lot of personal regrets, things I'd like to tidy up.
Well, now we're just wishful thinking. Of course, we need to get there and see what's going on. And
yes,
yeah,
truly, none of this makes sense. Myself and Dr. Larson, I believe, it's quite impossible for either.
And I'm not convinced this isn't all still some sort of elaborate hoax being played on us.
I'm more inclined to think that way, Dr. Alden. Actually, I think this is a wonderful forgery, my signature. But I would be interested to meet the person who's managed to do that.
Not to discount, of course, your own experiences, Dr. Daystrom, but somebody...
There might be a hoax laced within this, but there's very serious matters that we need to decide what's real and what's not.
I mean, if Osterman would go so far as to learn of what happened to me and then put on this little show and
realistically
the seizure and things, that would be quite low, I think.
Realistically, let's not be duped. For all we know, Osterman is trying to steal a machine from Dr. Cruz. And he's trying to get us to do it by creating this elaborate, nonsensical... I mean, there's possible he somehow got a hold of our signatures.
Well, that is entirely possible. I have dealt with con men in the past, Dr. Alden. Believe me, that is not terribly difficult.
What troubles me is why anyone would wish to pull an elaborate hoax on a book club. Who's even aware that we know each other, that they would choose the five of us, go to the trouble of studying our signatures and finding a skilled forger? The antiquity of this paper seems convincing to me.
Oh, and it's the elaborate. If they're going to pull a hoax on somebody, why make it so unbelievable?
Sometimes the
Indeed.
more unbelievable, the more you keep convincing yourself that it has to be true. He could have been planning this for years.
What if it's someone attempting to lure us, though, to some nefarious end?
No.
What would again? I guess it goes back to Dr. Larson's point. Why the five of us?
I don't
And
know.
to
Maybe
what
just
end? It's
maybe we're inherently curious because of our club. Perhaps that's why we looked like the perfect dupes. Once again, we don't know anything yet, so we'll just keep that in our minds.
Well, if they ask for a single cent, I would say, don't open your pocketbooks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, do any of us have enemies that we should be concerned about? That you might have told about
the
the club
difficult
too?
thing about that question, Spencer, is when you have 5 years of your life you don't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe I do,
Yeah.
but it's quite one-sided animosity.
I don't imagine any of us have had perfect lives, that we don't have people that we really, really didn't care for and didn't care for us. So enemies, not that I would think they would go to this elaborate, to trick us or play some horrible prank on us.
Yeah.
But sure, yeah, there's people I don't like, people who don't like me.
Okay.
Here's a
Yeah,
question.
because sorry, go ahead.
Do we think that Ms. Peasley would let us look at his lab since he is unavailable?
Maybe.
I bet she probably would.
That would give us a fair indication of whether or not he was trying to get us to steal a stranger's machine or he had built something himself.
Well,
I think that's
Osterman
a very good
himself,
point.
I would think Mrs. Peasley would tell us to ask Osterman.
I have a
Osterman's rather unavailable.
Maybe fear is not the right word. I anticipate that Osterman is not going to remember much of our meeting when he comes to.
Yeah.
Who's to say Mrs. Peasley knows that his wish was that we didn't go into that space in the first place?
There's an old thing. Maybe we can just break in. And it's easier to say we're sorry than to ask for permission.
She's probably attending him at the hospital anyways, right? She isn't at the house, is she?
I'm not sure the nature of their relationship.
Peasley's involvement in all this perplexes me. She seems to convey, or tries to convey, on one hand, a deep familiarity and willingness to help, and on the other hand, a complete ignorance and aloofness.
Well, lawyers don't always
what alternative motives she knows and what she's not telling us.
Good lawyers don't always ask questions.
Academics who have live-in lawyer friends who bring them cups of tea. So their relationship
them through
to
5
me is
years of amnesia. Like, it's
very obscure.
Yeah. Well, I'm personally now quite excited about breaking into his lab. I mean, the truth is, even if
perhaps we don't have to break in.
Well, even if the police come, our intentions are not nefarious. We're not trying to steal from him. And
how about we just try to go into the lab and we don't break anything if we don't have to?
Yeah. Except maybe a lock.
Have the alien signals been saying something to you that they haven't been to me? This is the second time in a short period you've mentioned criminal behavior. Doesn't seem like you at all.
No, it's really not. But I guess my adrenaline's up, and we've got a good mystery here, and our intentions are good.
Well, let's visit the Osterman place. If Ms. Peasley's at the hospital and the place is unguarded and we don't have to break anything, then we can visit the lab. And if she's there, then we can insist that there's information in his laboratory that we'll need to see if we're to be able to even recognize his device from the vague description he gave. Conical and 200 pounds with bits and pieces, stones inside.
Okay.
As long as we agree that an open window also constitutes a viable means of getting inside the house.
Okay.
The window is the door to many things.
Do you know how exciting the life of an astrophysicist is? It's not at all.
He's sad addressing a CPA.
And an anthropologist. And a bookstore owner and mathematician.
A mathematician.
Yeah. You never know.
Bookstore is full of adventure.
It is. So
Like
you're going to
accounting.
chartered accountancy. So you're going to head back to Osterman's house. No problem. Okay.
Let's see if Miss Peasley's car is there.
Okay. Yeah, you go back to the house, and you do not find her car out front. You assume she's probably at the hospital.
Did she leave the door unlocked?
Make a luck roll.
Oh, okay. 55.
It's almost 50-50. So
Yeah. It always feels great when you're the one who says something for the luck roll and you're like, oh God, I hope I have luck. I don't have luck. 66.
yeah, it looks like she did lock the front door on her way out.
Maybe
Okay.
up
And I don't suppose with a 66 there's not one under the doormat.
Yeah, you look at the doormat. It doesn't appear to be a spare key lying
I'm
there.
going to fiddle with the lock and see if I can accidentally,
Yeah.
I've only got 10%,
I was about to say, I actually have rank in that.
57.
Mm-mm.
I think Julie was saying I'm much better at lockpicking than you.
Julian? Let's
you're
go.
not
Let's
doing
go
it
look at the.
correctly.
Let's go look at the kitchen door. They're often left unlocked. Servant's entrance.
Yeah.
Or the basement.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah, there is an entrance to the basement. So you can check the back door or the basement as well. So
Oh, there's a coal chute.
yeah. Okay.
Is the back door locked?
Back door is not locked.
Up front. We're in. And I look over and Julia's got a set of small metal pins in her hand.
Yeah,
and
like
looks disappointed.
well, all right.
It's practically an invitation.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hold back just a little bit and stop Tycho and say, well, do we all need to go into the lab? What do you think? Like, I'm not sure.
That's like going to the store and buying the ice cream and then just standing outside while somebody else eats it.
All right, yeah. Just don't know how crowded this place will be. I've never really broken into somebody's house before.
Well, wait, weren't we here before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We didn't see to the downstairs though.
It's probably a nice, he's a college professor. It's probably not that big.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll follow your lead. Let's go.
Okay.
Cellar doors are usually not far from kitchens and back doors.
Yeah, you actually find the door to the cellar right off the kitchen, actually. So the kitchen door leads down. It is it's not locked as well. And so you can head downstairs into the basement. You find a light switch right there at the top, and you can head down into the basement.
One by one.
One by
Watch your
one.
footing. Watch your footing.
Yeah. You come down into a basement. It's set up as a workshop. You see all kinds of scientific tools and instruments lying about. Positioned in the center of this basement workshop, you do see kind of like a raised area that you think that this thing was set in. Yeah, would have sat on. And if you all want to do some spot hidden rolls, you can certainly do that as well.
I want to go over to the
on
cellar doors and see if they were forced open, because otherwise, how would you get the thing out?
Yeah.
I'm looking for schematics, paperwork, math.
Okay.
I fail.
You failed. Okay. Yeah, the back door looks fine to you. Flint, how did you do?
I
Failed
failed
too.
too.
Okay.
Did anybody pass? 'Cause
Did anybody pass?
I failed.
Oh my God. Okay.
We just bump off each other in the cellar. Bunk. Bunk.
Yep. Yeah, you just
Anybody close enough to spend any luck?
yeah, if you want to spend some luck, you can do that. No?
I was
Okay.
25 off.
Oh geez, yeah, don't do that. Yeah, you just find this spot where you think the object was setting. It was obviously set on a plinth of sort to make it a little easier to work on. And there's all kinds of scientific tools and instruments lying about. You do see different types of minerals and rocks that looks like that he has mined and shaped and polished to use as part of components. There's electrical wiring. There's all kinds of this sort of stuff lying around.
Well, I guess then we can assume that he, in fact, did build it and that Cruz stole it.
Yes.
Well, assembling something doesn't mean that it works the way in which he said it would.
Right.
And he said he'd never actually turned it on.
Does
But
he
I'm
have any
wondering.
notes? Where's his notes?
Yeah.
Where
Right.
are they?
Well,
Perhaps
I mean,
they're in
just
his
look
bedroom.
at the path with me, though. Am I missing something? He would have had to taken it up the stairs. We're thinking that one man came in here by himself and carried a 200-pound cylinder out
Well,
the way
I
we
thought
came.
I thought he'd go out the cellar doors.
You think that's any easier, hoisting that out by himself?
He may have
to
had
at least had help.
somebody. Yeah.
He must have had help.
It makes me wonder if Osterman's not mad and this thing works, maybe it just sent itself through time and space somewhere else. His assumption that because it was missing, Kreutz had stolen it seemed a bit arbitrary, with Kreutz being presumably, 100 miles from here.
Are there
Yeah,
signs
okay.
that something very heavy had been
Was
dragged
dragged.
through here, disturbed, anything like that?
Yeah, are there any like bangs on the walls or stuff like that?
Okay. I will let you do another spot hidden for those kinds of questions.
I'm gonna say it feels like this is information that we all failed
I
to
got-
obtain earlier.
I got a regular success this time.
Okay. Failure. Anybody else? Failure.
Oh, 5.
Nice.
That's an extreme success.
Okay. Yes, after you do a little bit more searching around the plinth area, you are able to see drag marks. But the drag marks don't go to the cellar door, and they don't go to the stairs that you just came down. They actually are dragged toward the back wall of this cellar. And Nathaniel, with your 5, when you approach the wall, you can actually see that there is some kind of imprint that is into this wall. It looks like, the best way to describe it is probably like some kind of smoke that has left an imprint on this wall. And so your best assumption is that this object
Larson
was
was right.
drugged through the wall.
Perhaps
it
Perhaps we have a
just
secret
went-
passage.
You feel around
or
on the
Larson
wall.
is right that the machine was used somehow,
Yeah.
or some other. This is
Are those scorch marks? Is that what's left after it went
it looks
through
burned, or
reality?
scorched, or smoke damaged.
It does have the wall itself. When you tap on the wall, it's solid. It's a solid stone wall for a foundation of this house. But yeah, it does look like scorch marks the more you kind of look at it.
Well, if there's other scientific equipment around the room, are there any microscopes with slides?
Sure.
Can I scrape some of the residue onto one and maybe take a look at it. I'm not a biologist or anything, but I want to see what it looks like.
Yeah. You can definitely scrape some of this residual matter off of it. And when you look through it, the light gives it sort of a purple hue, and it has some sparkle to
like
it.
Crystals.
Yeah, like crystals to it.
Some sort of crystals, some sort of like amethyst crystals.
I'm going to look for drawers that weren't obvious where he might have stored paperwork or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Can't have done it all that's a hard. Oh no, it's an extreme 11.
That's an extreme success.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. You are able to pull out some books that was kind of hidden, maybe on a bottom shelf or something. You find a copy of Roger Bacon's The Thoracis Chemicus. You find Turba Philosophorum by Arthur Edward Waite are lying about down there. You can also find some basic drawings of this object, and it's sort of obelisk in its general shape, but it's still got a cylindrical look to it. But there doesn't seem to be any kind of notes on it that indicate how it worked. It seems like most of what was the design was in Osterman's head.
Perhaps Cruz also stole some of the papers when he was here.
Yeah.
If he was here.
Still believe him to have been the thief? It looks like this thing just shot itself off the shelf. There's no way that he could have been behind that.
Here's a somewhat astonishingly strange theory that seems to fit some of the facts if we believe what Osterman said. He spoke at length with Kreutz on the phone, and he gave things away that he regrets having given away. Kreutz was working along similar models. They might even have some of the same texts. I mean, he's working not with modern physics, but with Daystrop's previous subject. So perhaps what Osterman let slip allowed Kreutz not to come here and carry this thing off, but to call to it, to fetch it to him. Maybe he produced some sort of radio signal that operated this device and sent it.
Can you hand me that?
The AE-Weight or the older one?
The drawing.
Ah, certainly.
Yeah, and when you look at the drawing, it does have, there's something familiar about it. You can't quite place it, but it's got a familiar shape to it.
I feel like I've seen something like this before.
Perhaps from your missing years?
Yeah, I guess. Kind of like visibly shaking. I'm gonna set the drawing back down. Larson, I'm gonna go sit down, just very pale.
Have a seat on the stairs. Do you think that we might find any utility in borrowing these texts to read perhaps on the trip to the observatory?
It's all alchemy. It's all,
Yes, unless there's something encoded in here, I won't be able to do much with it.
You're on mute. I'd be interested in it.
I don't have a background, so.
Yeah, I feel. Oh man. Does anyone have a compass? Which cardinal direction did this thing launch off the shelf? Did it go towards the observatory?
What time of day is it? It's
Well,
afternoon.
it's not launch. It didn't launch itself. It was a drug across the floor.
Yeah,
I think it drug itself.
Yeah, we'll put this about maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, so based on the position of the sun, and it is June, so it should be fairly, it should be going down in the west. That should give us a fairly decent idea of the direction. So yeah, which direction did the thing move into the wall?
It appears to have moved in a northwesterly direction.
Yep. That's where
And the
that's where we'd be
observatory is in a
heading.
northwesternly direction.
So I think Dr. Larson's correct. He might have built a contraption to pull it through the world.
That in of itself would be an astonishing accomplishment.
Again, a terrifying technology to have in the public hand.
Some scientists say that matter itself is mostly empty space. You could move things through one another.
Mostly empty space, but don't try that with your head on a brick. I wonder if this thing, it left a mark on the wall here. Did it dislodge other material between this basement and its destination? It'll pass through gas lines and water pipes and other basements that have people in them.
Like tiny little purple crystals. Maybe it's an effect.
Yeah, it could be that it crystallizes the material it passes through, like heat scorches things that it approaches, an energy discharge.
Yeah, this wall back here is solid. If it turned into some kind of substance that could move through this, it could go through anything.
Scientists should work with other scientists and perfect their ideas, not work all alone in labs in their basements. This is how disasters take place.
Oh,
it's also how patents are written.
I think I'm going to go back to my home and have some tea before paying a visit to Osterman in the hospital, if anybody cares to join me. I know, Tycho, you expressed some interest in looking into the observatory and Walter Cruz before
Yes,
tomorrow.
I want to look some things up in the library.
I wouldn't mind taking those texts, Dr. Larson, unless you care to look at them yourself.
Maybe we should take them.
Divide and conquer.
We're just borrowing them.
Yes, it's too late for the public library, but we can access the university library and at least get a gloss on them since we are unfamiliar with them ourselves.
Yeah. Yes, Daystrom, you go have a rest, have some tea. What time shall we leave in the morning? Say 9 a.m.
I think.
As soon as we've rested and prepared ourselves. And speaking of preparing ourselves, Mr. Rastlin, I'm kind of a Liberty Gibbet type, not very practical in certain regards. For example, I've never really discharged a firearm, but if Mr. Kreutz is a strange recluse who's just stolen a powerful piece of technology, we might consider some sort of self-defense in the case that he takes an exceptional degree of offense at our approaching him about this matter. Is that something you have any familiarity with?
I'm able to defend myself, though I very much prefer not to. If you're speaking about arming ourselves in some way, I would agree. I'm not sure I would want to be something small and concealable. I don't really want to go around carrying a club or something.
No, yeah, that's rather what I had in mind, but I'm afraid I'd be more likely to. I mean, I've actually shot in the woods for sport, but I don't think carrying a rifle over my shoulder is a very good idea. So if anyone's remotely competent with a handgun, I would think about it being reasonable to procure one tonight before we head out there.
I've never fired a gun, but I did a little boxing in college in my youth.
Okay.
What's the gun? You point it and shoot it.
I've never been trained either.
Surely Miss Chase has to defend all of that money.
I can handle myself in a fight.
Yeah, you can easily procure pistols if that's something that you would like to add to your character sheet. No problem. So Dr. Daystrom, you're going to head back to your home, if I understood correctly, and the rest of you are going to go to the
University
library. University library. Okay.
It's better than the public one anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we'll start with you guys and head off to the public or the university library.
Well, while they're at the library, would there be any chance that I would have a book about a topic that, like astral projection or something, like some kind of passing spirit, or like occults or like legends of it or something?
I mean, given your particular knowledge about rare books and whatnot, you've probably come across a lot of different rare books that do talk about magics that allow you to be in different places, that different rituals and spells and that sort of thing, that you've kind of come across. But a lot of it, is very similar in its, you have to be at a certain time of day, and it has to be, with Eye of Newt and all these other really crazy kind of chemicals and whatnot like that. So this seems to be a little bit different than what you ever encountered before with this construction of this object.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to look at in the university library?
Yeah, I'm going to look in the astrophysics and physics for concepts of time travel. See what scientists have determined or decided. I know that physics works both forward and backward, so there's technically no reason why time travel is not possible, but nobody's ever. Maybe some people have come close.
Okay. Yeah, and you can definitely find a lot of different academic journals that talk about the theories, building off of a lot of what Einstein has put forward, but nothing seems really too concrete.
There's an interesting thing here in Einstein about an Einstein-Rosen bridge, which would be a kind of a wormhole between 2 points in time and space. You could theoretically travel back and forward in time, but he says the energy that would be required to create such a thing would be astronomical. Probably not possible.
Yeah, and you also just happen onto a tidbit of information that Einstein actually did visit the Kreutz Observatory in 1921.
Oh, he was there.
Yeah.
So Kreutz was open in 1921, the observatory.
He shut it down in 22 is what you were told, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it opened in 1897 and shut down in 22. Yeah.
I wonder
Again,
if that's a
5
coincidence or if Einstein and Kreutz had a discussion.
Kreutz seems adept at picking people's brains. It's also relevant that he closed it, potentially relevant that he closed it in 22 and it's 27 now. We have these 5-year spans creeping up all over the place. 30 years itself is a number of 5-year spans. What can we learn about these two books? The Turbo Philosophorum, that's a relatively recent object.
Yes. The Turba Philosophorum is also known as the Assembly of the Philosophers. It's believed to have been written in 900. It is a collection of alchemy texts, is really what it is, actually. There's also several versions that are out there that have been translated into different languages like Latin and English and things like that.
So it's not a single authorship work, it's a collection.
It is it's translated from Arabic. Yeah. There are 9 philosophers that take part in a discussion. So it's kind of set up in more of like the kind of like the Plato.
It's a dialogue.
Colloquium. Yeah.
Is the text illustrated?
The text is not illustrated, actually. Yeah.
And the other text?
The other text is the Thesaurus Chemicus by Roger Bacon.
Oh, Bacon. Did he work with Dee or against Dee? I think he's Elizabethan.
Yes. Published 1620 is what it is. Yeah.
And the contents of the book itself?
Yeah, the contents of the book itself really deal with a lot of alchemic nature. So it's kind of based on a lot of the popular alchemy theories of the time. Yeah.
And are there any notations in these books? Anything that someone clearly wrote in the margins, anything like that?
Yeah, you do actually find some notations that are written in the margins that probably deal with a lot of the minerals that you saw in Osterman's house and different things like that. Yeah, you do find that. There is actually something that you do happen to find in one of the books, and it kind of falls out. It's just a newspaper clipping.
Letter from the editor, the Intellectual Observer, February 17th, 1892. Regarding our scientific community, we are saddened to report that Dr. Walter Kreutz remains infirm following a laboratory accident involving his fellow scientist, Dr. Admar Osterman. We understand Dr. Kreutz's assistant and sister, Ursula Kreutz, is caring for her brother while he recovers. Dr. Osterman is said to be convalescing at a private facility, as we wish them all a fast recovery.
There's Ursula, there's Kreutz and Osterman.
All a year
together.
before.
Strange.
No, 5 years after. 5-year cycle. 5 years after this letter. The three of them are not here and now, but there and then. And they have public posts. So we need to find, that newspaper was local to Milwaukee?
Yes.
So we need to find where Kreutz was a professor at that time. How's Osterman his assistant back then? Ursula, I'm very... At least we weren't mentioned. Look on the bright side.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the year on that article?
It was February 17, 1892.
I see. Yes, you're right. 5 years.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay. And to just give you a little bit more information, because I just found it on the Chemicus, the one by Bacon. It is at the time, it was considered to be the most comprehensive collective work on the subject of alchemy.
And it sounds like it was more physical alchemy than theoretical. So descriptions of minerals and elements. Is it illustrated?
Yeah, it does have some general illustrations that are inside it. Yeah.
I want to page through it, see if there's anything like our...
Yeah, you do find a lot of different woodcuts that are placed throughout the books, but you don't find anything that is resembling this drawing that you found.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
The plot thickens. I don't know how to put any of these things together, but I do have a 5-year plan to figure it all out.
To boldly go.
Trying to think if there are any other astronomical cycles that are in 5s, but I don't think so. I thought maybe the pentagram of Venus, but that's an 8-year cycle.
Yeah.
I think we should be careful regardless. It seems as though nothing good comes of the people that get tangled up in this.
Truly.
Missing or amnesia, accidents.
What if this newspaper clipping... does the University Library have collections of newspapers bound? I'd like to see whether this is actually from the newspapers in our dimension. And that's why these people are in a different time and relationship. So if I can get a copy of this paper from the library's collection of periodicals, I can compare them.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely do a search on that, and you can find this article in the newspaper. Same advert at the bottom, Illich's restaurant.
Okay. So I feel at the very least that Osterman misled us quite a bit about the relationship between him and Dr. Kreutz.
Unless he doesn't remember.
Right, but we know what dates Kreutz was. Well, we think Kreutz's amnesia is just ending. I mean, Osterman's. Kreutz's amnesia began that year, but Osterman said nothing about having been his assistant. 30 years ago. That seems like a significant thing to leave out. Unless Adamar Osterman's father was also Adamar Ostermer, in which case Senior was cruel.
This is why scientists don't fiddle around with time travel, because they start to go, what's all this? So too many numbers.
Yeah. Time becomes irrelevant and everything gets all mishmashed and wibbly wobbly. Okay. So we're going to shift the scene over to Dr. Daystrom. And you've arrived at home and you've made yourself some tea. You're probably flipping through your journal. Yeah. And you can flip through your journal and are you trying to locate passages that are similar to the object you saw?
Yeah, I want to look through anything that my amnesia self left behind. Journal entries, books, papers, things.
Yeah. Yeah, there's you're looking through your journal and you can find references to being in a place, an alien place that seems different than where you currently are. And you're trying to describe what your dreams tell you, and the dreams do have these kinds of shapes to them, like you're in a city of some sort that have large structures that are built in a similar fashion. Yeah.
But desolate, these large cylindrical structures.
Yes. And you seem to focus in on the impossibility of the construction of this city.
And this is myself recording my dreams. This is not something made by the amnesiac self.
Correct. Yes. You've been trying to recall what you've done over your past 5-year period. And as far as like objects, yes, you do have some of the old metaphysical books that you collected during your 5-year period. And it's kind of weird because you didn't really have an interest in medieval metaphysics prior to that point.
Flipping through them, did my amnesia self leave annotations?
It seems like that of the annotations, it seems to be of a scholarly nature. But it's a really weird perspective on what you're reading. Like it's almost like somebody made notes who didn't really have any understanding about human culture. It was more of observations about metaphysics and that sort of thing. Somebody with a very different...
But it's anthropological. It's like they're trying to understand an alien culture that is humanity through this text.
Yes. Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. And yeah, it's definitely somebody who has a different understanding of reality, different understanding about religion. Yeah, it's very strange.
Is there any... Is it all just kind of weird and indecipherable, or is there any like finer points about, say, wow, these weird humans believe this strange thing about time, which is totally false? Or is there anything as direct as that, or is it?
No, it doesn't seem to be anything as direct as that. It does seem to be more about making observations on the culture through these metaphysical texts. Yeah.
I'll take one of these. I'd like to show it to the others. These weird alien annotations of mine.
Yeah, and they seem to kind of have that theological focus. Is sort of the crux that you're kind of picking up as you're looking through some of these notations. Yeah. Did you also want to make a trip to the hospital?
I do want to make a trip to the hospital.
Okay. Yeah. So you make a trip over to St. Mary's, and you find Osterman's room. And you also find Mrs. Peasley is still there. Osterman is lying in a bed and seems to be resting comfortably.
I'll knock at the door and say,
Hello. How are you doing?
well, it's been quite a day, but not as much of a day as Osterman seems to be having.
No, it's been quite traumatic, actually. The doctors are quite perplexed. He's breathing, he's here in the bed, he's living, but he's completely in a coma. The doctors don't understand what's going on.
And this hasn't happened to him before.
Well, I mean, he did have the accident several years ago.
Sorry, I should clarify. It hasn't happened to him since the accident.
Oh, no, it hasn't. No, this is very different, very new. The doctors are running tests. They're trying to find out if it's cardiovascular, if it's something to do with his nervous system. I'm not a doctor myself. I don't really know what's going on, but they're perplexed as to what has happened. One doctor seems to think that he's had a terrible stroke. But at the moment, he is in a coma.
I have to say he is quite the lucky man to have such a loyal friend as yourself.
Yes. Dr. Osterman and I have been together for a number of years. Yes.
Are you? That's perhaps a silly question. Are you concerned about his health at this point?
Oh, yes, I am. Before the accident, he was very healthy, and even after the accident, he was in good health. After learning to re-walk and do everything again. So this seems to be quite sudden. He had been to the doctor just last year and was checked out, and he was fine. So I'm very perplexed as what this.
So you knew him before and after the accident?
Yes.
What was that like when he came to from the accident? Was he out of sorts beyond just his new hobbies and the relearning his motor skills?
The hobbies were different, but before the accident, I'd really only done some basic work for him as a lawyer, mostly dealing with his publications and whatnot. His personality was different after the accident, but I suppose that's normal given the severity that he was dealt.
Did he like forget things that you had told him in the past before the accident? Did he?
Yes, he really did not have much memory at all before the 5 years. Yeah. But the doctors explained that was probably normal given the issue that he was dealing with.
So your kind of further integration into his life and his affairs was post accident.
Yes. Yes.
Do you ever give a reason as to why? Or do you have a reason why you integrated yourself? I mean, you are a free agent after all.
I am. It I don't know. I feel a little bit embarrassed speaking to you about this. I don't know you very well, honestly.
I'm sorry. I guess I do mean to pry. I feel very bad. To share a personal, and you may be confused about my own interest, but I underwent in my own life an experience quite like Osterman.
Oh,
As a matter of fact, I went a period of 5 years of, or so I'm told, extended amnesia.
interesting. And you don't remember anything of your...
I don't see. I don't remember anything, but I'm told that I took on some strange interests and a different personality, quite like Osterman here. So, I guess in a way, my prying is quite selfish, and I apologize for that. Trying to understand what happened to myself.
That makes sense. I now understand your questions. Yes, yes, after Osterman became his accident, I took it upon myself to take care of him. I moved myself in without invite. He did not invite me into his house, but he did seem to be appreciative of my presence and taking care of him. And he did vocalize several times that he did appreciate all the effort that I put forward. So,
it's nice that he was appreciative. But did you wish it ever went beyond appreciation?
Yes, I did. I did wish it. I was never able to broach the subject with him, though, and fully express my feelings. And now, as I sit here and I look at him in this bed, I really regret not expressing how I felt.
I'm terribly sorry to hear that, and I greatly fear that the Osterman that's going to wake up is going to be the old Osterman. Identity's a strange phenomenon. I guess in a way, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yes, you're not the only one that's mentioned that. The doctors have been trying to explain that to me, that when a person has a terrible accident such as this, personality can change. And so I'm trying to prepare myself for what may come. But I do thank you for coming. I know I mentioned earlier that I would drive you up to Lake Geneva, but I think I would like to renege on my promise and not drive you. I would like to stay, given his condition. I do apologize.
No, there's nothing to apologize about. We can arrange our own transportation up to Lake Geneva. There should not be any trouble.
Yes. And thank you very much for coming and visiting.
Yes,
it's very kind of you.
Well, again, my deepest condolences, as much as the condolences from somebody you've just met can mean anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I suppose I'll give you some privacy.
Yes, yeah. Have a very good evening, and please let me know how things go.
course. I'll be in touch. If anything does change with Osterman, however it goes, whether he wakes up as his old self or his recent self, let me know.
I certainly will. Yes, I'll try to get a hold of you. Yes.
Good evening, Miss Peasley.
Yeah, have a nice evening. Okay. So we can kind of move things forward a little bit to the next morning, say maybe 9 o'clock. Where are you all meeting, and are you going to take one vehicle?
I suppose you can all meet at my house, because I have some things I want to show you before we go.
Well, do you have a car, Mr. Taster?
I think with the 60 credit rating, I would likely have a car.
Okay. Yeah, mine's 55. Well, why don't we say that I'll pick up Julia and Spencer and Flint, and then drive to your house to pick you up. So yours is the last house. We all meet at your house. He wanted to show us something.
I went and visited Osterman in the hospital and spoke with Virginia Peasley a while.
How is he?
He's comatose. It seems Virginia was quite infatuated with the new amnesia Osterman. But that affection was not reciprocated.
So it doesn't sound like he's switched bodies. What if Kreutz also has, if he can move things through walls and steal his lab equipment, maybe he can induce coma from a distance.
Oh, I think whatever the amnesia self did.
Sounds more and more like
might
an
be.
attack.
I mean, for me, it was 5 years, and then I came back. So perhaps whatever it is, if it is an external thing, only has so much time. I guess precisely has 5 years before it loses hold, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Given that his 5 years should roughly be up, I think that the reason he was going to wake up in a hospital bed and you woke up in your own home is just the circumstances of when the change happened. Yours happened while you were in bed. Maybe you even slept for 2 days. Who would necessarily know if that's how you woke up?
My circumstances. I mean, it seems that Osterman's amnesia self, which if anybody has a better system of naming, I'm open to it. But Osterman's amnesia self had a Virginia Peasley who was quite affectionately looking after him, but he would have been Virginia was the one who initiated that relationship. I think amnesia Osterman, not wanting to be hostile or call great attention to himself, didn't resist. But I have the feeling he would have been quite happy to have been alone, as my amnesia self seemed quite happy to be alone. So there was just nobody there when I collapsed, whereas Osterman, we were there, Virginia was there, and so he was taken to a hospital. But if nobody was there, he was alone, he would have found himself back just on his floor.
How old would you say? How old would you say our friend Osterman appears?
Keeper, how old would you say your friend Osterman?
I think he told us last episode, like 63.
He's an older man.
He's an older guy. Peasley is late 30s.
bit of a May-December situation. Well, I have picked up a revolver, and I've been cleaning and oiling it and reading a little manual. So we have some ability to protect ourselves should things with crates get very hairy.
I hope that is not the case. But the thing I wanted to show you, other than relaying my conversation last night, was I was doing some digging in my own home, my own research of what my amnesia self left behind, and I found these peculiar annotations in his books. It's a perspective of whoever wrote these annotations is quite odd, to say the least.
I think a Freudian would say he had some sort of ego identity problem or failure to emotionally connect to himself in a different state. It's very
it's almost
looking.
I mean, it's like this kind of cold objectivity of examining another culture that, is so desirable to cultivate in the field of anthropology. He's like almost, I say, a non-human anthropologist.
Well, what if, assuming the whole time travel theory that we've been looking at, what if you transferred somebody from 10,000 years ago into the modern body? They wouldn't know what the hell they were looking at.
1,000 years ago, imagine showing a crusader a film camera.
Well, he probably think it was witchcraft.
This isn't like an old person trying to grapple with new understanding. This seems like somebody with a completely alien frame of reference trying to come to an understanding of
someone unhuman.
Yeah,
I was thinking that's what's specifically been haunting me the more that I've thought about it, is that the rehabilitation period, like just the descriptions that I've heard make it sound like a newborn infant. It's not a like a human thinking mind in a new body. It's something that's never experienced this before and has to learn from a baseline.
Now that you posit that, it does seem more likely that if an alien race came here, they really wouldn't know what they were looking at. It would be like us examining insects and trying to figure out what they're doing. What better way than to transfer your mind into their world? If you could become an ant for a little while to learn what ants think.
Dr. Alden, didn't you say that after Osterman had that accident several years ago, he had to relearn everything?
Yeah. So
relearn how to walk, relearn how to talk.
These are all really interesting academic questions, but I'm still thinking that it's going to be some hoax. Although it's getting less and less likely, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you interpret Peasley's going back on her offer to drive us up there, I mean, I read it as grief.
Spencer.
But again, I don't know if it's if you said a hoax, I mean.
Spencer, you've been in the book business for a long time, haven't you? Has it always been rare and unusual books, or?
Yeah, probably not as long as you might think. I spent almost all of my 20s traveling the world, and that's kind of where I started collecting things. And once I decided I needed a storehouse is when I kind of converted. But yeah, it was an interest before I really started accumulating. So they are very particular.
It seems to me all of a sudden, because of our speculation, that this has become very pulp novel-y. Aliens coming here to learn about us and
Yeah.
screwing up our lives. It sounds very
fantastical, and like a lot of the mysticism that I've heard from different cultures, certainly.
Yeah. You can almost see the cover of the book now with some half-dressed woman in fear of the monstrous alien entity, bug-eyed.
If it weren't for Dr.
I didn't take you for a
Daystrom's-
reader of a.
Yeah.
I've seen the covers.
Are you implying that to be Ursula? I think that might be in poor taste.
I fear we've all just spoke over Julia.
I'm
No, I was merely saying if it weren't for Dr. Daystrom's clearly alarming medical history, I would say, yes, this all seems to be quite the hoax. But I mean, Dr. Daystrom, not to minimize your distress, this does seem to be something that very much.
well, perhaps we should solve this as quickly as possible.
Well,
Let's
let's pick up a hamper of sandwiches, since it's going to be a little bit of a drive. Tycho, if you need anyone to spell you, do speak up. Maybe a thermos of coffee or two would be a good idea. And everyone should have a look at the clipping that Miss Chase and I found in one of his texts. Is the clipping that came out of the Bacon book, is it yellowed with age, as one would assume?
Yes, it does look like it would have been printed in 1892. Yes.
So
Amnesia Osterman, or A. Osterman, was aware of primary Osterman's involvement with Kreutz in the past.
perhaps at some point he became sophisticated enough about his host that he did some research and found this clipping.
Yeah, in contemplating my own amnesia self, I have a lot of curiosity about him. I never fathomed that he would have any curiosity about me.
If I were to try to imitate someone or even imitate myself after a brain injury, I might do a great deal of research. I would read my childhood diaries if such existed and so on to try to connect with myself. But the point also is that this clipping is from 1892 and Ursula died in 97, 5 years later. So if this injury is the beginning of Kreutz's transition, then it's striking that 5 years later is when he recovers and yet his sister dies. And Osterman was involved in the incident
and it says Osterman underwent some convalescence too. So either primary Osterman could tell us what happened there, or this may not be Osterman's first amnesia occurrence.
Right.
It's almost as if he had amnesia also in 1892, and so did Kreutz. It could almost be that now is a continuation of those two personalities or entities or whatever, all these years later, repeating something or finishing something that they started.
I believe it would take more time than it is worth exploring, but I would be interested to look at the history of these men at 5-year increments starting in 1897 and seeing if they crop up in the news periodically at 5-year intervals. I think it would take quite a lot.
That'd be an extended research effort.
Yeah, what about just specifically the year that Ursula died? Like, if we have more specific dates, I want to know the sequence of events, because if we're considering him to be two different egos, then we need to know which one was with her.
Present at Ursula's death. Well, I fear that we have kind of slipped into the our old academic habits, and we're going to sit here and talk about this.
No, we can have
honestly, I feel like we could take the 2-hour drive up to the observatory and
we can talk about it on the road. We'll probably need to get a hotel in like Geneva, and we can see what library is available there.
Yep, you can definitely do that.
And it'd be easier to find sources there, I think, about the specific about Ursula and Kreutz near the observatory than it's going to be to look through morgues here.
Okay, so your intention is to find a hotel around Lake Geneva and try to ask around and that kind of stuff before going to the observatory?
I don't think ask around extensively. I think put our bags away, make sure we have a place for the night, and then inspect the observatory and see if the lights are on, if the door has been bashed in with an axe. I mean, he's not answering the phone. Nobody knows anything about him, but he conversed with Osterman a couple of days ago, we were told.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can easily make the trip. It's a lovely trip up the road to Lake Geneva. And you can find a nice little roadside motel. The Lone Pine Inn is there and available for you, and they have some rooms, some vacancies that you can get. So, yep.
Does the innkeeper have directions to the observatory?
Yes, the innkeeper can easily do that and say, yeah, it's right up the road. You just take this road, take a right, and you'll come right to it. Can't miss it.
Do you know anything about the history of the observatory?
I know a little bit about it. Yeah. It was constructed back in 1892. No, I'm wrong. It was it was 1893 is when it was constructed. And they finished it in 1897. Mm-hmm. There's a big to-do. The Kreutz family, they had a private small observatory up there at one time, and this new observatory was really a big expansion from what they had. And the thing's got 3 telescopes in it. It's got the big one under the big dome, and then there's 2 smaller ones up there. There's been all kinds of scientists that have been visiting and whatnot. Even Albert Einstein was up there, actually, at one time. It was pretty cool. He even stayed here, believe it or not. And I had a little bit embarrassed. I didn't know who the hell he was when he came.
I heard one of them went missing, one of the Kreutzes.
Yeah, Ursula, she went missing for some reason. There was a murder investigation. They never found her body. They don't know what happened to her. Her brother was the prime suspect for a while, but police never could find any evidence.
No local rumors?
I mean, the local rumor mill says that her brother killed her. Now I don't know, but that's what I've heard. It costs a lot of money to build that place. It's awful fancy. It's got all kinds of carved stonework and whatnot. It's a really nice place up there. Yeah. So I figured they run out of money myself, and they had an argument. Mm. Yeah. But hasn't been much activity up there for a while, though.
All the excitement died down, I suppose.
Yeah, for some reason, Walter become a recluse, and he just lives up there by himself.
He doesn't have an assistant or anything to go out and get his groceries?
I don't know of any assistant. We do see him in town occasionally. He actually does venture out and gets himself some food and whatnot, but he doesn't usually talk to people, and it's usually not a pleasant experience when you do talk to him. He's kind of a crabby pants.
Maybe it's the guilt about his sister, or something else happened and it haunts him anyway. Maybe he saw something in the sky.
I don't know. I mean, I've read all kinds of books about weird stuff up in space and whatnot. So I don't know.
But you haven't seen any bug-eyed aliens running around town.
No, I haven't seen anything like that. No, I've seen some weird looking fish come out of the lake, though.
It reminds me not to eat any of the fish in the lake.
Surf and turf is off the menu.
Yeah. Got some good cheese, though.
Famous for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's your keys. You'll find your rooms right down the way. Parking, you can park right in front of your place there. If you need anything, just pick up the phone and call. There's a nice little diner right down the road. Margie's a good cook.
Thank you.
Good to hear.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Probably only be a few days, but we'll keep you up to date.
Sounds good. Appreciate the business. Hope you enjoy your stay here in Lake Geneva.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what would you all like to do with your day?
Well, as we're getting settled in for the first few minutes, I'm going to say, so in the car. Oh, I was driving. Okay. So I've been thinking about this all the time that I was driving, and I've kind of written a little bit of it out here on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
See the red line. The red line is Dr. Daystrom. And he starts here. I mean, he's had his whole life, but he starts here. He gets to this point and he loses his memory. He goes back in time to this point because whoever this is has hijacked his body by jumping forward in time, living for 5 years, and then jumping back to his body, while then he forces Dr. Daystrom forward in time, and then Dr. Daystrom continues. Something like that.
So I'm trying to follow what you're saying, and it makes sense on the end of when the original returns and has all their memories, but I still don't understand the rehabilitation period. I don't think that it's the same personality having to remember unsuccessfully who they are.
Well, I'm thinking if the blue line is the alien hijacks his body by switching bodies with him. And then when he gets into the future, he doesn't know what the heck this human is. And he has to learn how to move, how to eat, how to do things. It takes him a while. And then he begins to gather information of what he's observing. And then eventually he goes back into his body. And for all we know, he doesn't forget. But Dr. Daystrom, being shoved out of his body, has to readjust. Perhaps he has to readjust because he goes back to the alien's body and can't function there very well. What are your dreams like, Dr. Daystrom?
No, I dream of being in this waste where there is these tall cylindrical structures, like some kind of strange city.
But nothing like you've seen here on Earth.
No, not until that.
Surely, as an anthropologist, you've
Sketch and
seen tons of
Osterman's.
architecture.
Yeah, I've seen more architecture than most, I would say. Nothing like that, except for that drawing in the basement yesterday. And my own dreams.
So if the alien theory holds, somebody is hijacking us
But
to
why,
learn about us.
if your theory is correct, Tycho, then that would mean I lived 5 years in the past in a body that's not my own, but I don't remember anything of that sort.
If memory didn't survive this transition, then the entities wouldn't get much out of the visitation. And you'd think if they entered one body and learned how it worked, they'd become more proficient, but they seem to go through a period of rehabilitation. Let's see what the observatory looks like, and we can speculate again over lunch.
Okay.
I'd like to know whether he's going to fire on us as soon as we drive up to the place.
He said he was a recluse, the guy at the hotel.
And unpleasant to deal with.
Okay. Yeah, so you get in your cars. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We've been going mostly northwest. Have we been going mostly up or downhill? Have we gained or lost elevation on average?
At this point, let's say that you've gained some elevation. You don't think you're like terribly far up in the air, but you've gained some elevation.
Just wondering if we could look for marks of that device dragging itself through a wall of the observatory.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
How terrifying.
Okay. So you get in your car, and I suppose, Tycho, you're going to be driving. Is that correct? Yeah, driving along. Okay. You get out on the road, and it's a nice wooded road, and you follow the instructions that the guy gave you, and you're a few miles from the observatory. And if you would, please make a listen roll.
All of us, or just Tycho?
All of you.
I got a 19, and my listen is 35. I will spend 2 points to make it a hard.
Okay.
I'm also at hard.
Hard.
I got an 80, so I am not listening at all. I'm in my own head thinking about stuff.
Okay, so I think Julia and Tycho are the only two that heard. You hear what sounds like an explosion.
Did you hear that?
Yes. What was that?
Is it thunder or an explosion?
How could you not hear that?
Doesn't seem like it should be thunder.
Yeah. And at this point, you can start to see the trees in front of you just bend in your direction as this wall of dust and debris is just blown into all of you.
I put on the brakes.
And so please make a drive roll for me.
Oh, 62 is... I drive off the road.
Drive off the road. Drive off the road and you crash your car into a tree. And as this is happening and you're spinning and out of control, would all of you please make a power roll for me?
8. Yes, pass.
60 is a right on the dot pass. 60 for 60.
Regular
I pass.
Okay, great. So yeah, your car comes to a halt up against a tree.
Dear.
You're all jostled about quite badly, but you're safe at this point.
Good God.
Gets out of the car in case something starts a fire.
Are the trees returning to a vertical position?
Yes, they're waving, and you can see that this blast, the shock wave, has actually knocked several of them down and caused quite a bit of damage to trees in the area. Yeah,
that most definitely was an explosion.
But what? The observatory?
Well, that's the only thing I know that's up here.
Here.
But didn't we estimate that we're still a mile or two away?
You had driven about 2 miles up the road. So at this point, you're not too far from the observatory itself.
The explosion of that
or
size.
where the observatory was.
Right. We should get up there, see if everyone's
I've got to see if the car is going to even start. We hit pretty hard.
Wait, Dr. Larson, how long was the gap between when they reacted to the sound and when the shockwave came?
Keeper, how far away was that blast? Almost.
We'll say it was almost simultaneously. You heard it, had enough time to go, what was that? And then it hit the car.
A second.
Yeah.
Rastlin, why don't you and I get out and make sure that the front axle isn't bent too badly, and probably a little bit in a ditch or on a rise against the tree. It'll be obvious, I guess, if the radiator's cracked, or look for anything that's leaking out of it before we try to drive. We might need to walk.
We might need to walk.
Yeah, you see some steam coming out of the engine. You take a look at the wheels. One of the wheels looks like it's busted. Tycho tries to start it. It's completely dead.
Dear, oh dear.
I'm no mechanic. I can hold a part, but I have no idea what to do here.
Well, yes.
When there are fluids leaking out of the engine block, then you're not driving. I'm that much of a mechanic.
We left all of our luggage, though, back at the hotel, so we...
Yeah,
we're traveling late.
So you're in good shape. Okay.
At least Kroll's safe.
Yes, I think I bruised my elbow, and that was about it. It was a good thing you began to brake when you heard the sound. Is there rubble this far out, or is it just torn branches and
rocks?
Yeah, at this point you're pretty close to the observatory, and you're looking around, and maybe you look up at the sky, and you can actually see what looks like storm clouds starting to form in the direction of the observatory.
Did Dr. Kreutz make a tornado machine as well?
A tornado machine that causes something like that explosion. My goodness.
Should we run away from the observatory rather than going to see what's happening? I don't like the looks of that. That's not atmospheric. That's not normal. Is there a wind still?
Yeah, you can still feel some wind that is blowing through it. It's pretty steady.
I mean, how close are we to where the observatory, I guess, presumably was, as compared to back to town?
Yeah, you're probably like 2 miles from the Lone Pine Inn, and maybe 5 to 10 minute walk up to the observatory.
Well, let's see what the damage is, if it was destroyed, or if I'm up for a walk. It's been a long drive.
Perhaps Kreutz had a vehicle up there, and we can use it to get back to civilization. But keep an eye on that sky. It doesn't smell like fire, right? We're not seeing smoke or burning. There was a blast.
Yeah, there was just this blast, and we felt the shockwave of the blast. Yeah.
Let's stay on the road, but maybe close to the tree line in case there's more violence and we can duck behind something.
Okay. So you walk up to the observatory itself, and I have a picture of the observatory to show you, just to kind of give you a good visual of what this thing actually looks like. But this is a visualization. This is what the observatory looks like. You've got the main dome, which is kind of where the direction that you would be approaching from is from the large dome area. And there are two towers here, which are also observatories, smaller ones. So that's what this looks like.
And it's intact.
Well, you say that. As you get this visualization, the main dome door is open, the one for the telescope, and you see a large beam of light that is shining out and toward the sky. And it is forming a jet black eye in the sky. And all of these clouds are starting to swirl around it. One of the towers, of the smaller towers, the north tower has exploded. So the top of it is gone.
What is he doing? What is that?
Is this a sanity roll?
Yeah, I like that.
You should not have passed.
Oof. No.
Oh, 05, I passed.
I rolled a note 2.
I rolled a 92.
Rolled a 97.
What's the hit on that?
We'll do a D3 on that.
Oh, 3.
Oh, 1.
3.
If you failed. Okay.
If you pass, is it 0?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I don't know how a beam of light can do that.
I don't either, but I think we should probably get up there and find out before whatever he has done gets worse than it is.
Right.
Yeah. And as you were having this conversation, looking at the scene, then I would like you all to make another power roll, please.
Success.
Failure.
Success.
Pass.
I got an
Pass.
extreme.
Got an extreme. Okay. So as you're standing there watching this, the other small tower explodes, and you were all struck by the shockwave, and you're lying on the ground. To those who failed the luck roll or the power roll, so you're standing there, you're lying on the ground as this shockwave rolls over you, and you're trying to get yourself all together. As you're trying to pull yourself together, the folks that failed the power roll see Tycho's car drive up. And Tycho is driving. Julia is in the passenger seat, and the rest of you are in the car. And if you would like to make a sanity roll on that.
No, what? I failed that. Oh my God.
Another D3 on that one.
We've been. We're not in our bodies. This isn't real. I lost 1 point.
Okay. And
Poor Daystrom.
you can see the people in the car. They're looking back at you just as astonished to see you laying on the ground there in front of you. In front of them.
Now it's Daystrom pointing at Daystrom.
Yes.
How about those of us who didn't pass or did pass the that roll? Are we seeing this?
You don't see this, actually. You don't see this.
I'm
But
getting
Do we
up. I have to get
Daystrom,
over
what are you
there.
pointing at?
Do we see Daystrom's actions?
We're-
Like this
We're
is a
there. We
prolonged
pulled
thing that
up.
he's just
We
doing?
pulled up in his car.
Oh yeah. He's completely freaking out on you guys at this vision of this car.
Nathaniel,
Daystrom.
what are you talking about? There's nothing there.
We're there. It's like
There's nothing there.
no, we
I'm
are.
here.
Does
Yeah.
he,
I'm walking over there.
Yeah, and as you're walking toward the car, because the folks that failed it can still see the car, you hear a sound. And if any of you were in the war, this sounds very familiar, like incoming shells. And you hear
Whistling?
this
Yeah.
whistling sound come. And you all see this. Something just slams right into the ground and creates this huge divot. But Dr. Daystrom, you see this thing hit the car and it just kills every one thing in the car.
My God. I passed that sanity roll.
Oh, good. Good. And so you are all now standing looking at this huge divot that has been planted into the ground. And in front of you, you all see this. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
so we should do sand too.
Yes.
But we just see the divot. We don't see the car.
You don't see the car. Yeah.
Or
We
the
all
us.
just died.
The building's being shelled. That's why it's exploding.
Sort of.
But the
What the
odd,
Get
hell
away
is
from
going
the building.
on?
Yeah, we're
The
gonna
odd thing is-
die here.
the odd thing is that you can kind of see that something is in front of you. You know how like you can see heat off of pavement?
Uh-huh.
Some large thing is in front of you. You can't quite make out its shape, but you
Where the
can
divot
tell
is.
this where the divot is. Yes. Something is there standing in
Ugh.
front of you.
But is it invisible?
You can kind of see it as far as like it's moving. And so you can kind of see the movement, but it is currently what we would call invisible.
How big is it?
About the size of a blue whale.
I'm walking towards it, trying to understand what I'm.
I'm backing away.
Yeah, I'm backing away.
Yeah, backing away.
What are
Yeah.
you doing, Dr. Alden? Get away from it.
I'm
Yeah.
heading for the main observatory. He's turned on a beacon or something. It's got to be shut down.
Yeah, and so as Tycho, as you're walking towards it, it is going to move on your position, and it is going to attempt to hit you.
I'm not sure I can dodge from something that's invisible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he rolled an 80, so that's not all that good.
So something passes very close to me,
Yeah.
or
So
do
maybe
I
it's
touch
a-
something with my hand?
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit disoriented from its slam into the ground, and it kind of swings a little bit wide of you. Actually,
Oh, something's there, and I come running back.
yeah.
We need to get inside.
This thing is going to do another movement, and I would like all of you to do a strength roll.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, 18 is a hard
No.
success.
Putting
Okay.
these dice away. They keep rolling 97.
No.
I also
Regular,
got a hard.
Okay.
regular success.
Okay. So, you you feel this wind that comes at your face. And Daystrom, Raslin, and Larson, you're able to kind of like dig your fingers into the ground and hold your position. But Julia and Tycho, you guys feel yourself pulled backwards.
Pulled towards the thing?
Towards the thing, yes. And it's pulling you towards it, and it's going to be moving itself towards you, or together.
Am I close enough to grab either one of them? I'm not very strong, but
I'm going to say that your strength roll was to hold your position.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they have been pulled back against this thing, actually. And it's going to try to hit the two of them as well.
Now I'm trying to dodge because I know there's there.
Yeah, I was about to say, if there's any chance of dodging.
Yeah, you can certainly try.
003.
No.
Nope. Okay. 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay. So Julia, how many hit points do you have?
What a great question. 10.
So Tycho, you are able to dodge this thing. And as you're in the motion of dodging it, you see this thing just hit Julia in an uppercut, and it just tossed her up into the air, ass over tea kettle, and she comes crashing down into the ground, into this ugly, ugly crunch. But you have been able to get away.
But I need to do a sanity roll for seeing that.
Yes.
I got a 006. I still think I should do 1d4.
I've rolled an 87 for a scary invisible monster and saying that, so I failed.
Okay. Keep track and let me know if you hit 20%.
How much should I take for a fail?
1d3 on this one. Okay.
1.
Okay. So Tycho is moving up to the three of you, and I imagine the other three are trying to continue forward.
I'm just trying to get to the observatory. I just want to turn the thing off. I'm not even looking at the thing or the place that the thing should be.
I'm waiting to see if they can get away, and if I think that it's getting near them again, then I'm gonna intervene.
Okay. Yeah. And once again, you can feel this wind pull at you. And so if you can do another strength roll for me.
I'm gonna fail soon.
16. Hard success.
Nice.
I failed that one.
Success.
That's my first fail on that.
Okay.
What?
Spencer, did you pass or fail? I'm sorry.
I failed.
You failed. Okay. So Alden and Daystrom are able to hold their position while Larson and Raslin are pulled backward toward this entity, and it is going to move into your position and try to hit the two of you if it can. And 61 is probably not good enough. It is not. So you all are able to in the kind of dance in the wind, as it were. So at this moment, Alden and Daystrom are ahead of you, and so you guys can continue to move forward toward the thing.
I would very much like to get inside.
Yeah.
Can we try grabbing their hands and pulling them forward as we're going?
Yes.
We're all fighting against the the wind.
Yeah, you can certainly do that. And if you are kind of like holding hands, I can give you advantage on a strength roll.
Well, I can see like the form of the thing, right? Like it's obvious where it's standing. And it's pulling me towards it. Can I spend 14 magic points and try to kill it?
You with your special thing?
Yeah, that'll be enough that I have to take 1 hit point and then I have to take the sanity cost as well.
Okay. Yeah, you can certainly do that. Let me see what the okay. Okay, that's an opposed PAL roll with a target. Okay.
And so I'll be losing 7 sanity, but that isn't enough to make me go indefinitely insane. How does that work? Do I need to roll intelligence?
Yeah.
Okay. I passed the intelligence roll.
Uh-oh.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Did you roll POW?
No. You ready for it?
Yeah.
I rolled a 41 and I could spend 9 luck to make it a hard if I need to.
I rolled a 2.
Okay. So I could spend let's see, 28 luck to make it an extreme, and my power is 65, so if that's higher, I think that would work.
Okay. This thing is a big old sack of hit points. So I don't know if you want to continue to spend that kind of.
Okay. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but you do damage to it, and
Okay.
you can see that when you do damage to it, it does react, and
does it make noise?
Yes, it makes a lot of noise. There's a lot of whistling noise and wind. A lot of wind type noises that are coming out of this thing.
So I scream and get fucked up a little bit and then say, that's all I got. I'm running now.
Yeah.
I'm going to start shooting into it.
Okay. You could definitely do that.
Just anything or not. Yeah, I don't know what I'm shooting at, so I'm just firing wildly at it.
Okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's going to move back into your position because you guys have kind of paused while you're doing this. And so it's going to try to take another hit on the two of you, actually. Okay. Yes, it is definitely going to hit you guys, actually. We're going to say it's going to hit Spencer.
Spencer, no!
Okay. For 9 points.
Dang. All right. That puts me down to 1. So do I need Constitution?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Major wound.
Major wound.
I failed that.
Unconscious.
Unconscious. So
I tried, guys.
Yeah.
But
so you see Spencer fall, but that does give you guys enough time to make your escape.
So do we escape into the building?
Yeah, as you get up to, you go up the stairs up to the entrance into this building. We'll say that you can kind of get that far. You can see that this thing has kind of turned away from you at this point. And so you can kind of stand there and watch this thing move about.
Now, in the dust and the wind and everything, can we sort of now see its shape?
Yes. Yeah, you can kind of see its shape. It's about the size of a blue whale. Like I said, it's huge. But it's sort of, it is kind of got that blue whale shape to it. So it's kind of like a worm-like shape to it. You can kind of see that there are other things that are flopping about from its person, from its body. So it's not quite cylindrical in shape. Yeah.
Julian, Spencer.
They're gone. They're gone, Tycho.
We might be able to help Spencer, but we have to stop whatever is in this damned observatory.
Let's go get it. It's got to be in the big observatory. So let's just run in.
Okay.
I've still got ammo.
Okay.
I'll reload.
So you guys turn and enter the observatory. That's where we're going to call it for tonight. And we will pick it back up next week.
Oh, I didn't expect you to say that. Spencer and Julia.
And we will find out next week what happens to Spencer and Julia.
It's a flesh wound.
Our players included Holly Buteau, Morgan Llewellyn, David Gasaway, Kaylin McDowell, and myself, with Julian Arbaugh as the keeper of arcane lore. We have a Discord server where you can chat with other members. You can set up private games. You can learn the finer arts of gameplay and game mastering. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Spotify, iTunes, or Podbean. If you'd like to help support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 a month helps us a lot. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows. And leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answer any questions you might have. This is Thom Raley, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.